Can you guys hear?
Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to The Push, presented by Bodyslam.net. I'm Dom Mallon with Cassidy Haynes, and we're here with a man today who needs no introduction, but I'm going to do it anyway because it's just so fun. JEFFJARRETT, and don't forget the HOF when you're spelling the letters, everybody. Mr. Jeff Jarrett, thank you so much for being here with us.
Hello, my friend Dom. Hey, how's it going today?
Going great. A lot greater than I'm sitting here with you right now.
Really great. Ain't we great? Let's get right into it.
There we go. Well, the first thing, listen, I know that we're short on time. You have a lot of people that want to, break down the door and ask you questions today. But the first thing that we'd love to know is probably what everyone else wants to know. And what do you have on the horizon for yourself at the end of 2020 going into 2021?
Oh man, lots of my world. You went right to the dig.
Yeah.
I love it. But no, lots of. I'll just say this: lots of moving parts in my world. Pardon the pun, but that is the accurate statement. Working with a lot of different partners that obviously I can't really go into right now. But there are some pretty cool things coming up. And, to take a step back, the entire industry in so many different ways is red hot. I call them, we'll call them anything from the WWE and the massive Peacock deal, obviously AEW and add an additional show, other promotions around the world. But when you get into the licensing, and I'm working with a figure company, I'm also working with a gaming company that we got some things in the works. So the business continues to evolve, and there's, ratings are in a lot of ways, they're still a great barometer. No dismissive on that at all, but there are so many new barometers in our industry, from a digital component, from a social media component, lots of eyeballs, I'll call it the world, the universe, the wrestling platform all around the world. We're much more connected than we were years ago in so many different ways. I mean, what we're doing right now is going to be seen in, Australia, UK, all points in between. That didn't happen. Didn't really happen 10 years ago. It could have, but just how I'll call it the online wrestling audience has just continued. The YouTube numbers just continue. I'm doing a project that we're analyzing YouTube numbers from an industry, not just a promotion, but just industry wide. Dom, Cass, it's massive. It's so massive. It's kind of like, when you hear numbers like that, there's a reason that John Cena is the most followed athlete, or however you want to caveat it and all that kind of stuff, and the growth. So it's really exciting, but I got a lot coming down. And when the time, me, you guys have both known me for a while. When the time's right to make the announcement, don't worry, for my friends, I'll make the announcement.
Nice. Well, we'll definitely be listening, and you're so right with just how easy it is to see so many different types of wrestling that was, like you said, even 10 years ago, it was out there and it was available, but it was a lot harder to get your hands on it. And now it's so easy to see just everything.
Yeah.
Do you have any maybe underground promotions or any kind of like smaller name promotions that you're aware of that you like to follow, or any specific wrestlers that you like following that are on the up and up?
I'll keep I don't want to single out one, because then it will be, I'll say this though. The amount of content that's sent to me, text or email, hey, take a look at this. And, the smallest of small promotions, Illinois, Iowa, just, hey, here's a YouTube link. The ability for me to be, I shouldn't tell myself texting and looking at videos and driving, but no, traveling in a car, in between breaks, at the gym, that you can just literally watch a quick clip and see the talent. The independent scene. I mean, Matt Cardona, the face of Game Changer Wrestling. I'm taking a dig there, but all kidding aside, Fight TV. I was an early adopter. I will continue to wave the banner of Fight and their technology. That goes back to 2014, and when they were known as Flips. But the amount of content that is there that you can see, that's how, again, I'm a 35-year vet. And so years ago, there weren't these many options. Nowadays, and like when I do a wrestling seminar, I tell guys in the industry, your best friend should be, or I'm going to suggest it be, is YouTube, because you have the ability to sample all different kinds of wrestling, promo styles, just all that kind of stuff. Even if you're a backstage announcer, if you're a referee, if you're an in-ring performer, if you're a promoter, look at different things that you like. And, it's all obviously revenue driven, but you can pick up a lot of things on YouTube just by searching and looking. So, as you guys can tell, I'm excited about where the business is at, but especially where it's going.
And it goes both ways too, because you can look at all of the things that are on the come up, but you could also look at all of the things that are archived from the past now so easily. I can watch Thunder and Nitro from years when I was too young to be able to stay up and watch it live and
Yep.
catch it as close to live as they'll allow it to look now. But it's great. I can chronologically go through the Attitude Era again, or I can go through the territories and watch everything in succession, and it's great.
Impact, the Impact app and
Yeah.
YouTube and what you just said, Peacock. There's when you really and Ring of Honor on Fight. I mean, we have the ability if you so choose, and that's what I'm going somewhere with this crazy statement. But when I have a 10 or 11-year-old kid come up to me and say, "Hey, I listened to your podcast," or "Come on, kid, you didn't really listen." No, well, my dad was listening and I was in the car. Okay, that makes sense. But I went and looked that match up. Hey, that was a really good match. I mean, this kid he was long thought. I mean, he's 10 or 11 years old. That match had happened. Would we just have the 25-year anniversary or something like that? That really is fascinating to me, that a young 10 or 11-year-old can go back and look at what we did 20 years. That's really cool to me.
I agree. You see it all the time on, when you see fans in the stands and you see little kids wearing like a Bret Hart shirt or wearing, anybody. It's cool to see. Now, I mean, this is probably such a basic question, but do you have any one specific dance partner in the ring that you really like hanging your hat on as somebody that really helped you provide some of the most elite matches in your career?
Oh boy. It's hard to name one. I learned so much, but stepping in the ring with Lawler, Lawler's known as a color commentator. I don't think people really realize how good of a performer. Look, he doesn't do moonsaults and but his psychology. I was really fortunate to learn psychology. But me and Shawn Michaels, I had some early matches with him in the '80s in the territory, but then '95 through however those matches. That was something that I'm very proud of that work. I could, AJ Styles in the early years when I was, obviously the veteran or older than AJ, but we had some really special chemistry in a lot of ways. And those were matches not seen, on large platforms. Wednesday night, only pay-per-view. And then, if you would have asked me, even to this day, I think, man, in 2010, me and Kurt Angle had a series of matches that I'll put right up there with any of them. He is so good, and athletically, he's on a different level from his athletic ability. But his timing, but the story, the matches, the ups and downs, the drama. Those were so. I know I'm giving you a broad stroke, but AJ, Shawn, Kurt. That run of WCW when I had different opponents being the champion. I mean, you name it, from Sid to Steiner to DDP to Nash to Flair to Hogan. I mean, but that was such a wild experience that it was so interchanging, but I always tried to do my very best to put out a good match. So, yeah, that's a loaded question, Dom. I hope I answered it for you.
Yeah, with a resume like that, I didn't really expect one specific answer, but just to hear, like you said, the names that you've been in the ring with, it really is its own resume. It's wild. One thing that I really always liked from your career that I think gets overshadowed was your time in the Bullet Club. I genuinely like that. And I felt like you got a lot of heat when, not the right kind of, or, depending on what you were going for, maybe the exact kind of heat you were going for. But how did you feel about your time in the Bullet Club?
So if I could peel, and I'll get into it when we do the episodes on My World, we're going to get into it, but I'll just give you a sneak peek. if people could hear the conversation that I had with Tanahashi about his family, and when they saw the guitar shot, I think people would go, "Oh wow," because you just said the right kind of heat or this. I think that's a mixed bag, and I totally get it. I mean, if you guys follow my world at all on social media, it's Conrad. Now it's really a running joke. Hey Jeff, I hated your stinking guts. Hey, but you're actually kind of nice. I was like, well, wasn't that by design?
Right.
The whole deal. But when AJ and Doc and Carl, but specifically AJ and then Gato, when they proposed that, because I was starting Global Force and I wanted a real relationship, I had one. We got one. We brought, New Japan. We brought that to pay-per-view over here. We had a really good working relationship. We had a really good work. I've had it for years with the Roldan family and AAA and the promotions and the working relationships. I mean, you look at AEW right now, they're working with all kinds of folks, which I think is so cool. But that specifically, you're asking about the Bullet Club, laying out that story, and I was in the ring and that building was so hot, a monsoon would come in, but I was signing the document and a real corporate legitimate, we were telling the world we're having this relationship. And a couple hours later, I come down for the save, but end up cracking Tanahashi with the guitar. Hats off to Gato and the entire process on how well that was laid out. I just played my role there, but you don't really think about, oh man, you do to a certain degree, but getting heat in Japan, I think it's more of an American style or lucha libre style, but the heat that was generated out of that storyline, you talk about mission accomplished, but so much so on the online community here, people hated my guts. Like, oh my God, Jeff Jarrett in the Bullet Club. And I'm thinking to myself, yep, gotcha.
Yeah. And isn't that the point of the Bullet Club?
Yes.
To an extent,
Yeah.
That's kind of how it started. I was at in Dallas, the WrestleCon show, the Super Show that they did when you came out with the misses. I don't even remember who you were facing in that match.
Oh gosh.
But I was sitting second row, and I'll never forget the interaction that you had with some fan right there in the ring with you and the misses, and it was just so classic heel. Both of you just doing such a good job at the heel. And honestly, that was the moment for me where I was sunk in on the Jeff Jarrett Bullet Club.
Wow, that's cool. I mean, if you were there in that, we went way over the allotted time, but Dreamer was my opponent, or it was an 8-man tag. Mm-hmm. But, Tommy is ECW and hardcore, and I'm the anti that. And in a lot of ways, I was, the Bullet Club with Fergal and that early Bullet Club, but then I don't think people, well, you do. Yeah. I know you guys are well aware, but the Bullet Club was so hot with AJ and Doc and Carl and the cool hip factor. Me and my, my entire career, the Double J character and WCW and Slapnuts and TNA, but the timing of all that, that's what I'm saying. My hat's off to that whole really nicely laid out storyline because it worked. Yeah, it really did. And the Dallas thing. Yeah, man, we had some heat that night, didn't we?
You know what? I was recording that segment. I still have it on my phone. I'll tag you in it so you can see exactly what I mean. But it was classic. I sent it to everybody.
And here I am repping my Chase Owens Bullet Club shirt. That's my dude.
Oh,
yeah, man. I'm from Asheville, so I kind of grew up with Chase up in Sigmund. All those guys at East Tennessee boys. Them. Yeah, those are my guys. I've known them for 15 years almost now. So yeah,
love those guys. Love those guys.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned Global Force, and with the landscape of wrestling being what it is, could you ever see yourself down the line possibly starting another promotion at any point?
I've obviously been asked that quite a bit in the last 30 days or so. I think the launch of a promotion today. So the short answer is, I would almost have to respond with the answer because I don't think there's such a thing as starting a traditional promotion anymore.
Okay.
In that way, I just don't think. I mean, the NWA is a promotion, and they're on Fight and that, and AEW obviously entered the landscape, and I don't want to call them traditional, but they have blown it out, and hats off. And they're not just kind of successful, they're uber successful. And then you look at WWE's model to really think that thing through from a business perspective, from I'll say where Raw started, pre-Raw, I won't get into that, but Raw 1, 2, 3 hours and all that, but they launched a network, and not only launched it, they sold it to a major media company so they could move the needle on their streaming service.
Right.
From a 35 years, and my grandmother got in the business from 1946. That's it's very amazing. So your question being, certainly I can, I just don't think it's appropriate at this time to share what my vision of a promotion would be, because it's not a traditional. It's just, I think the world has changed. And I say this, look at music. Music stars are broken completely different than they were in the 90s and even in the 2000s. I mean, the music industry is much, much different. I mean, there's kids that are, there's influencers, there's TikTok influencers. Me and you, I could pull out a sheet and show you 20 TikTok influencers, and I'd be shocked if you knew one. Because it's just how the world is so different. So you're asking a question. I think you guys, I can see your pictures. You're thinking traditional, and that's why I want to be careful how that's answered. And
Sure.
I think the way things are launched nowadays are incredibly different than they were, and continue to evolve. And I don't see that slowing down. I actually see that speeding up on just how entertainment. I would have never thought I'd be doing a podcast from an entertainment perspective. It's podcasting is entertainment. So the world is rapidly changing and continue. In my opinion, it's going to continue to rapidly change.
Sure. Now, this is a general question. You probably asked it before or been asked it before. What's the worst town you've ever wrestled in?
Oh, guys.
Or are you too nice to put any one town on blast?
The worst town.
You can say Philly. It's okay. I can take it.
Philly. Look, I'm a heater. I'm a heel. It is the best worst town. No, and look, here's what. As a heel, I never wanted any type of applause, and made sure, and Conrad, I've had these conversations, as you're not doing your job if you, in my opinion, play to that as a heel. But, and I don't know, I think you would have to classify what's the worst town, talking about from a crowd, from attendance, from marketing, from media partners. There's a lot of buckets that you could put. This town is the absolute worst as far as advertising, or this town, Philly and New York and those top 10 markets. They're talk about a worst town. The reason I say that is because it's expensive as hell to advertise, but that doesn't make them the worst town. It depends on what you mean by the worst town. You're talking about crowd reaction. I got to say, I've had a lot of guys come through the curtain and said, "Oh my God, that crowd, it sucks out there." And I'm thinking, and I've said this to guys, "Hey guy, go look in the mirror. That'll tell you." No, you can't really put it on a crowd. You just can't.
Sure. Well, when you talk about mirrors, let's make it real simple. What is the straight up ugliest crowd you ever had to perform in, where you just look out and you say, "God, there is not a good looking person in this entire stadium"? I feel like you're too nice. You're not going to give it to me.
Well,
that's okay.
I'm kind of doing that right now. You guys are pretty ugly.
Yeah,
no,
sure. Bring it. That's okay. It's what we want.
I knew it. You're going to jump back at me. The ugliest town. Wow.
There's a lot in our area, man. Here in the Tennessee, North Carolina area.
I was going to say, look, I was born and raised in Memphis, but there's some ugly folks in Memphis. I can't say Nashville because I still live here, but no. Ugliest town. Man, I'd have to include some international markets as well.
Well, look, we don't want to start any wars. We don't want any international incidents.
There you go.
But
this is a fan question, and Cass wanted me to ask it. With the rise of AEW being what it is, and with the role that Cody has taken, do you get sick of hearing comparisons of Cody and AEW being compared to Jeff Jarrett and TNA?
See, and maybe I'm a little out of the loop. Maybe you guys, or maybe it's more in that way. I haven't heard. Yes, I've heard that, but I haven't It doesn't bug me. It's sort of what our industry does in that. How do I say this? There's always going to be, Michael Jordan compared to, and I'm not trying to, I got to be careful that I'm not doing the analogy. Oh, they're comparing it, but
Sure. To Kobe or LeBron or that kind of thing.
LeBron to Kobe, Kobe to Jordan, Jordan to Magic, right. that type of, there's always going to be comparisons. Cody's an in-ring talent. His father, Cody's a second generation guy, an in-ring talent. He's a part of starting a new company. So there are natural parallels. So if you ask me, it's an honor. Yeah. If you're asking me, Cody being compared to Jeff Jarrett, I take that as a huge compliment.
That's awesome to hear you say that, because when we got the question, I kind of thought, wouldn't that be a good thing? Like he's doing such a good job right now in that role. To say that kind of seems like you're complimenting him. Why would he take offense to that? But that's me.
What I like, if we're going on this subject, Cody as a performer, and like his old man, and Dusty in the early years of TNA and the Asylum, and Dusty would drive up every week and ask for his money up front, which I still love to tell that story to this day in a cool way. But I learned a lot from Dusty, and we had a really good relationship. But when Cody's telling his stories in the ring, and I saw him take off the boots and Malachi and all that kind of stuff. But Cody has done a phenomenal job, and I hope other talent watches him, because as the old Vince McMahon adage, it's all in the face and the facials. But Cody understands you have to connect emotionally. Right. That's another thing that connecting on that emotional level. And look, there's always going to be haters in every line of work. And I literally was taught this probably before day one in this industry. If you're not getting knocked, you're not doing anything right. Mm-hmm. You're going to get bashed. The more you do things right, the more criticism you're going to have. It's just nowadays, there's such a platform to be critical, to praise, and all points in between. That's life.
Sure. That's such a beautiful sentiment. And I know that we're short on time. I know that you have a lot more people that you have on your schedule today. If it's okay with you, I would love to end on a high note. And if you would like to do so, would you mind sharing with us a Owen Hart story? It doesn't have to be in the ring. It doesn't have to, just anything heartwarming that would just make people smile. Because I love Owen Hart. Everybody does. And I don't think there can ever be enough Owen Hart stories in the world.
God, just the, on My World, we had an extended a podcast, and my hats off to Conrad, because as a co-host or interviewer or whatever it may be, Conrad is maybe the best I've ever been around at doing the research, knowing the story, guiding things, but really, 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 I'll say, getting the most out of the podcast or the interview. So we again, it was episode 3 with My World, but I don't know. I'm trying to rack my brain real quick on time, but here's the thing that I always loved about Owen is that he could make the most boring, mundane plane ride, bus ride, going into a Denny's. And I mean, just the simple fact that, you wait up there and wait to be seated, and the lady would come and say, and it's me and Owen, and maybe 2 people with it. And she would look at us and say, "Oh, table 4," and Owen would say, "No, there's going to be 8 of us." And the lady would get 8 menus, and she would start down an aisle, and then Owen would say, "Come here." And we'd walk down another aisle of Denny's, and she's over here and she's confused. And Owen say, "We're over here." And she's like, "Well, can you sit over here?" And he'd say, "Sure." And then just sit down in a booth. And so like, okay, okay. And she'd come over, and Owen say, "You would like for us to move?" No, yeah. And she's like, "Can you sit over here?" And he would say, "You're asking us to leave now?" "Oh, no. I mean, just the little things that don't really cause any trouble, maybe extend the visit a while, but not mean-spirited. It was all in fun. But Owen would make a whole process and procedure about just getting seated. And then as soon as they would get seated in the menus, the lady, Owen would say, "Can I get our check, please?" The lady's like, what? You haven't even ordered. Just things that will throw a simple sit down Denny's meal into hysterics. I don't know if I'm doing it any justice and painting the right picture, but literally traveling with Owen was such a gift and a blessing, but you never ever knew. And look, at 2 a.m. when you walk into Denny's and you're tired and Owen starts this stuff, you're like, Owen, can we just sit down and get a deal? And he's like, hey, Jeff, you be in a bad mood. He wouldn't say these things, but the tone would be, you can be in a tired mood all you want. I'm going to have fun. And by
Right.
the, I mean, he was just such a unique, uplifting guy that my words don't ever do it justice, but I'll shut up and say he could make a 2 a.m. Denny's meal into a memorable, side splitting, hilarious adventure.
I think you did it justice. And honestly, that story's funny. It kind of sounds like he liked to have fun with himself, you know, and everybody else can just laugh along, but the game's for him in his own head, you know?
He would rib himself. I mean, literally, because even if he was hungry, he's adding at least 10 minutes to getting our food ordered. At least, you know, and just, I mean, like, Owen, just shut up. Let us get our drinks. Let us get our, we know what we're ordering. Let's get to business. And Owen would be sitting all over. And if the restaurant was half empty, he's like, you two go over there and we're going to stay over here. It's just like, Owen, please. But anyway, it was all in good fun.
That's awesome. Well, look, I think we're going past our time at this point, but I want to thank you so much for allowing us this opportunity to speak with you and for giving us some insights into some things that you have on the horizon, which we're really looking forward to. Everybody catch his podcast and keep an eye out for the things that he has going on. You can catch him on Twitter, and I believe you're on Instagram as well, right?
Buddy, Twitter and Facebook. When I got in the podcast game, they said, hey, man, you got to get Facebook. I've never been a Facebook guy, but I am now. It's all at Real Jeff Jarrett. Twitter and Instagram, I'm on that quite a bit. Facebook is definitely there. But we launched a website to coincide with it, and it's real simple. It's where you can download and merch and all that. But that's also realjeffjarrett.com. So everything is at realjeffjarrett.com. Hey, guys, I do appreciate your time today. I appreciate you just showing enough interest. So my world has it's been a ride. It's really been a fun ride so far, and we're just getting started, as Conrad continues to tell me.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much again for taking the time. We're really going to be looking forward to seeing what you have coming up. But God bless and thank you.
Thanks, guys, and go Titans.